Welcome, advocates, to another episode of the Leading Equity Podcast, a podcast that focuses on supporting educators with the tools and resources necessary to ensure equity at their schools. Today's special guest is Mr. Rob Harvey. So without further ado, Rob, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Been looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, pleasure's always mine. I appreciate your time as well. I'm really looking forward to learning about our topic. But before we get into it, I'd love for you to share a little bit about yourself and what you currently do.
I am a 20-year retired music business or music industry executive now in education technology. And that was inspired by, we have 6 and 8-year-old daughters, but when I left the music business in 2016, I knew that whatever I was going to do beyond that, I wanted to be in education. And I am now the executive chairman and co-founder of For the Win Robotics, otherwise known as FTW. And we are an education technology company that focuses on drone technology as an amazing learning tool for K through higher ed.
Great. Well, I'm excited because For the Win. And tell me a little bit more about that. So you said it's drones, technology. What's the ultimate goal behind the program?
That's a great question. The ultimate goal is strictly to awaken interest in students. Drone technology is our hack to grab the attention, because what student doesn't want to participate in some kind of drone learning, right? But
That's fair.
The original founder of the company, we've been around a long time. And in 2018, the original founder, Daniel Mihai, he's still here. He's our chief operations officer. He, like we do in the music business, found something which was magical. And that was years ago, our company bringing not our drone, but another drone, an education drone, into a classroom with an obstacle course or in some kind of curriculum. And the students, like, we didn't realize it. We thought we were right, but like, drone technology as a learning platform is something we knew we needed to really run down. Very similar to the music industry. This is what was happening in this little subsection of education that back in 2018 we were involved in. But like, everyone likes something, but like, when there's a significant return on the work or music or whatever, that's culture. That's something that, in our case and in the music industry case, you need to run down. And here we are 7 years later, just about, and we now have a platform called Build Fly Code, where it is simply in classroom, experiential, engineering, piloting, the science of flight, everything they need to understand a drone, meaning what are the props, propellers, what are the propeller guards, what's the PCB, all these things. So they essentially build this drone, they learn flight safety and piloting skills, and then they move into code, which is, what is code? It's an algorithm, it's a recipe, all the way up to the point where rudimentary basic beginners who have gone through the Build Fly Code kind of phase one, they now have a novice working relationship with the tool, the drone, that they are now going to be asked to solve problems using. And we'll get into soft skills and everything later on, but not only is there agency around the technology for the students, they know how to build, they know how to pilot it, and safety and coding. And then the last thing we actually teach in our professional development side is disassemble. So basically, Sheldon, if you were out there with your students, years ago, whatever, when you were teaching, it would be simply their job to manage this tool while you are hitting them with a large number and growing number of career technical education kind of pathways, search and rescue, precision delivery, but giving these students challenges and problems to solve using all of these components, and drone was the hack, but it now has become ubiquitous in one state in particular, and it's simply based on its efficacy. You can't take these kids' hands. You can't, okay, event's over, class is over. They're so excited, and it's not individualized, it's shared. So that's what we're all about, and that's what the product is.
I like it. That's good. And kudos to you and your organization for the things that you're doing. Of course, folks, there's going to be links in the show notes so that you can learn more about For the Win. But I'm just glad to hear everything that you're doing. Let's get into today's topic. We're talking about soft skills, and we're going to relate soft skills to STEM. But before we break down how they coexist, if you will, I want to start with what is your definition of soft skills? So that way we have a bit of a baseline to follow.
At the highest level, it's experience. So what I mean by that is when I was at Spotify, as an example, we were in a significant hiring phase or growth phase in the team size department. And so many candidates were extraordinary in terms of their education and potentially some organization, but really the education piece, MIT, this, that. And what I noticed, what was really kind of, wouldn't say disheartening, but like awakening, was they haven't done anything yet. Pressure makes pipes break. So like what happens when we're under pressure? You got to remain calm. These are skills. What happens when you're asked to solve a problem that you don't know how to solve? It's called collective intelligence. It's called using collaborative kind of thinking as it relates to bringing people in, bringing those that are in your organization in, no matter their level, to have dialogue, because you never know where the idea is going to come from. And outside the box thinking is a soft skill, and it's something that, call it ideation, you think tanking, all of those areas are not taught in school, generally speaking. And that was one of the motivations when I left the music side. And here I am walking into different school options for our children's first kindergarten class. And I'm looking around and I'm saying to myself, this looks exactly like it did when I went to school. You might see a couple extra things here and there. I'm not like criticizing anything. Anyone who's trying to educate, you have our double thumbs up. But at the same time, not only is it the same old way, generally speaking, but like still missing those elements that employers, where I'm speaking as an employer before at Spotify, like we need, like it's needed. So that's my definition of soft skills. I hope that helps.
No, that's good. That's good. And as I'm listening, I'm curious because you said something that I my brain started going, because you mentioned something like we didn't learn these, or we're not teaching these skills in school. And my thoughts with that is, well, I know in the social emotional learning capacity, like schools that implement those type of, as part of SEL, self-management, self-regulation, working with others, those kind of things are all part of it. We may not specifically say, okay, folks, this is your learn how to regulate your emotions time. However, I think I would argue that a lot of schools are, if they are social SEL focused, they would be teaching these skills. It just may not be as defined as kind of how you're mentioning.
Yeah, I mean, I think I said it twice. Generally speaking, right? Like it's not so. There's social studies, math, like reading, comprehend. Like
we put more emphasis on academics.
Yeah, and I didn't even mention us. Like, I guess I'm mentioning us, but like we are focused as educators, professionally developing, and on those areas. So there's definitely let's be clear, like it's not even just about soft skills that are important, but if you read authors like Adam Grant, as an example, he has a book out there that really talks about we're teaching wrong, meaning we're not providing for learners scientifically backed methods current that ensure things stick. So it's like in Adam Grant's book, he has a book out, a recent one, I think it's called Hidden Potential. There's a much more relevant subtitle that I can't think of right now, but it's all about practice versus play. Like we play with our work, but it's serious. It's more serious than most, but it's not we hack with like a drone, but these are hands-on expert. This is like real world stuff happening. And we just think that the more we lean into that one area in what we do, and we do other areas too, but like the more we lean into that, the more confidence, more agency, more social, emotional intelligence, all of these things kind of, have a much better result. But I'm with you there. That's why we're on this podcast, speaking to the other, in this case, about how to heighten the importance of it, how to elevate this conversation.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it requires intentional efforts.
That's right.
And if we're just focused on academics to help the kids pass tests and exams and states, whatever, then we miss the human side of
That's
our
right.
kids. So yeah,
That's
that
right.
makes sense. So let's do this. A lot of times with STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, we can even add art in there as well. STEAM, right?
Yep.
Um, Within that, there's coding. There's a lot of logic. So if this, then that, conditional. Like there's all these different formulas, equations. So one could argue that, oh, you don't need these soft skills because it's very 1 + 1 = 2 type of methodology within this field. How do you respond to someone that says soft skills aren't necessarily needed in the STEM fields?
I would agree and I would disagree.
Okay.
So I know that's kind of like I should be like speak. I should speak one way on one answer and then this way on the other. It's two sides of my face. No,
Tell me more. Tell me.
let me explain.
Okay.
So yeah, there are definitely some STEM education or STEM focused professional careers that one can get away with their coworkers not requiring and these are not even necessarily like joint fitter type of jobs where it's more labor only putting things together. It's programming as an example. So there are definitely areas that can continue in STEM to be not benefiting from the social emotional soft skill stuff. But I will tell you this, and this might be a conversation starter or a mic drop, but I could tell you pretty much nothing that I learned in school allowed for me to help the team build this company, full stop. Because it's not about 1 + 1 = 2. A company is valued by the number of problems it can solve. And that's not 1 + 1 = 2. That's, oh my goodness, there is a supply chain problem. So there's always, I mean, we haven't had this opportunity. We still don't teach on the higher average side
Mhm.
this type of skill. And we've survived this far and we've prospered. But I would just argue that it's time to take it very much more seriously because of what it will enable as us in humanity.
And the piece that I like to mention, like when folks try to make that claim, because I agree with what you're saying. Like there's certain jobs where someone they just read data all day and they don't necessarily have to. I mean, they can print out reports and they don't have to interact a lot. I always mention might be their professional setting, but how do we want to make sure that our staff professionals have personal relationships, their daily lives, their daily experiences, because how their mood is, how their relationships, they have a bad morning because they got into an argument with someone, might impact their work ethic.
That's
It
right.
might impact their ability to effectively work because they have stuff on their mind. And
Yep.
so not being able to regulate those emotions or not being able to work with their partner, their kids, whatever, those type of things also play a factor. But again, we don't always think about the human side of folks.
Yeah.
What is the task that this individual needs to do, and how do we make sure that it gets done? And not consider, well, what type of emotions are they bringing to this today or
You know,
this afternoon?
it's funny you mentioned that. And I would actually put that irresponsibility, if there is some irresponsibility going on the employers themselves.
Mhm.
Because culture is such a in vogue kind of term these days. But like, let me just talk about our company culture. It doesn't, we're not we're going to become a bigger company, but every single person at our company, first of all, it's all about transparency. We say right out of the gate, no matter where you are in the org, you have a seat at the table. Because if I'm the executive that makes the file, that has the responsibility, it's not like I'm like, yay, I'm the boss. I don't think that. I'm
Okay.
like, get the team around that can help me help
Mhm.
us all. So, and it doesn't like, you don't know where the ideas are going to come from. And if you're having a bad day, know that you can call any one of us and we get it. Do what
Mhm.
you have to do because we know that we're motivating you enough to the job performance is not the issue. We're not worried about that. We're worried about your well-being, your mental and physical health. So I call that the responsibility of the employer. And listen, if the educators can knock that out of the park and give us 100% on the funnel coming to us, wonderful. But it doesn't work that way. It just doesn't. And unfortunately, there are management teams out there or companies that don't care enough or know to care enough.
Yep. Okay, so I think you and I
By
are
the
on the
way, it works because the productivity, like I call myself the chief motivator at the company. I want you guys to run through the wall and run this company. I don't need, this is about, I want to just tell the world how great this work is. but like so far the proof's there.
There you go. Well, I think you and I are both on the same page when it comes to the necessity of soft skills within your STEM fields. And again, like I said, it's not just the professional side, but it's also on the personal side to me. So how does working with drones, learning how to code, those type of things, how does that develop one's soft skills?
So primarily, right, number one, a drone in the workforce is not, generally speaking, a one person at a time type of responsibility. Meaning you might have one pilot, right, flying the drone, but is that pilot the same individual that's actually mechanically tinkering and upgrading and fixing that drone? Likely not. Is it the ground control computer technician? Probably not. Is it the VLOS, a visual line of sight, human eye player in that group? No. So my first answer is to just kind of point to a setting of Build Fly Code in the classroom, or a Build Fly Code live event where we invite, already knowledgeable students and their educators to a live experiential event where they have to, and their group, they have to solve a problem, precision delivery. How do we do this to this with Hopper? And right away, you have 3 or 4 students on one drone, and they instantly know what they want. I'm going to be the programmer. I'm going to be the mechanic. So it's already collaborative in terms of the using of the instrument and its effectiveness. But like all other types of art and creation, there's not just one set of code that will solve that problem, but there's a better set, and maybe even a better set. So right away, your group is your group. Like you can't do this without each other. And witnessing that from our perspective in the it's just a wonderful thing to see, because they're looking to each other, because there's vulnerability. There's someone comes with a lot of knowledge. Maybe they played video games. I don't know, right? But so right out of the gate, when you're working with drones in the classroom as a learning tool and in the professional side, it's not just about you, it's others. And what is it that the collaboration or this collective intelligence is working on? Solving problems. Like pressure makes pipes break. Let's put a clock on that. Let's make it harder. So it's really collaboration because it's required, because there's a lot of elements, but then you need each other, collective intelligence, and then you have these problems that are varied through different industries, cinematography, precision delivery, and each one can come with a different set of experiences and intelligence and learnings that can benefit the group. It's really how it goes.
So starts with the teamwork, because like you said, even though it's a drone is a single, they call it, what is it, UAV? What is it?
UAV. Yeah.
UAV. Yeah. So unmanned
autonomous vehicle.
Yeah. Okay. I was trying to flex it's like okay. I knew.
We can edit that one out.
I was trying to pretend like I knew what I was talking about. Okay, yes. So
I did my prep. I'm just breaking your chops.
That was good. Yeah. So so the teamwork. So even though it's one UAV, but there's multiple players that effectively help the mission, if you will, take place. And so there's going to require problem solving. There's going to require teamwork. And so when we think about when a student finishes school, let's call it high school, and they decide what they're going to do going forward, whether they want to enter into the workforce, they want to go to college, those kind of things, they have some sort of foundational skills that they've learned.
It's exactly right. And, it's funny, those that aren't given that opportunity in their classrooms, what that student's doing when it's their own problem after school, they're getting on the phone, they're calling people, they're getting other perspective, they're using their emotional intelligence and collective intelligence to make sure it's like, don't go to the library, start reading books. I mean, read books, don't get me wrong, but like, where are you getting information? Humans, right? With experience that can give other perspectives. So yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So I've been doing a lot of research on dominant behaviors versus non-dominant behaviors. So dominant from a individualistic approach. So your traditional, here's a worksheet, work on the worksheet quietly at your desk.
Yeah.
Versus someone from a collective or communal background might prefer working in teams, or they might come from we just all pitch in together and get the job done. So traditional classrooms often lean heavier towards the individual work. Maybe there's some competition. Maybe there's, again, here, do this on your own, work silently, work quietly. So what I'm hearing is this, for example, the drone technology and working with students and coding, this is kind of, it goes against what traditional forms of teaching and experiences we tend to see.
What's funny is we get a lot of calls from like significant drone, like our drone is an education drone, okay, that has a lot of firepower, maybe the wrong choice of words there, has a lot of power behind it in terms of sensors and whatnot. There's no firepower in the other way. No, but what I mean is like there is absolutely a need, a requirement, a time for individualized upskilling. Like not all, if it's for individuals, the mechanic, the coder, they're not all going to achieve the same things in life because they're different people. They have different interests, different capabilities, different brains, of course. But so in learning, in an education setting, absolutely have people around you, especially at the younger grades, maybe K through 12 kind of. Maybe in the higher ed, you could kind of give more individualized. I mean, Hopper, our drone, can go very, very, very deep into multiple languages and all that, but it's really, we're K through 12, so there's a basics level as well. If you are teaching this social, emotional, and community and collaborate, if you're teaching that, it's automatic. Yeah. And then there can become and should become time, or throughout this time as well, individual excellence of study and experience and learning in one or several particular areas, that when you join back a group, you have even more to add to this collective intelligence. If someone who goes through Bill of Flight code throughout their education and becomes a drone pilot, that's wonderful. But for us, it is nothing to do with that. It's all about just awakening interest in all of these areas. And you'd absolutely want, I mean, who didn't? I did run down specific areas of excellence, or attempt to run down specific areas of excellence to make myself more valuable in those situations.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, let's open this up on a more broader scheme. So for those in general, what tips could you give? And it doesn't necessarily have to be STEM related, folks.
Sure.
But just in general, when it comes to group work, let's just call it group work. So there's a project. What tips could you give out to individuals who are looking to provide more of collaborative activities? What are some things maybe they should be aware of, look out for, consider maybe, and then as the project or activity is going along, that they should be maybe checking in on? What kind of strategies could you give in these settings?
It's said a lot. It was actually said on a recent podcast, one of your guests with you. It was you guys kind of branched off on a conversation about failure. And like, number one, fail, but fail fast and learn. Stop, start, and continue. Those kinds of things that are important. I would say right out of the gate, just be okay with it not working, because you just figure out a way it doesn't work. That's one less you have to figure out that doesn't work. But second to that, I would say, listen. Like that should be a major, right? That should be a subject in school. Listen. You cannot be a learner if you do not listen. And like, put your judgment aside, put your bias aside. And I'm not saying listen to the other side of an argument. I'm not saying that. I mean, I'm saying that too. But what I mean is, like, in our company, I will speak by giving an example. I always am the one for the younger people in the company. Like, what about you? What are you thinking? Like, I don't say it. If it's bad, we will laugh at you, because I've been laughed at when I had a bad idea. But we love you, and we're not really laughing at you. But talk, because you're 20 years younger than me. So listen, do that and listen, because that's learning. Even if you learn something about someone's ideas that you don't necessarily agree with, give yourself a chance. Give it a chance. You're 50% of the chance, 50% of the time, you're probably wrong by dismissing them. You're probably missing it. And so you'll eventually get to the point in your life where you're old enough to know you're embarrassed by doing something like that. I think it's just, and transparency, leave the ego at the door and be humble. Who cares how great you are? What's going to be great that we measure your greatness by is what you do in this setting. And I would say also read, what is that? I can't remember the name of the book. It's a really great book on emotional intelligence, where it's like that moment where you just want to like either overtalk someone's idea, or you want to just jump in, literally cover your mouth, like, and think about it for a second. Let it breathe. Take the emotion out of you're angry that person said something really smart, and you're going to want to like that. Stop that. I think it's really setting the table for humility, kindness, for people to, and because that's going to get you to have the most inputs into this collaboration, if you will.
Don't be afraid to fail. Transparency. Listen. I mean, I think all of those are some great tools to do. If I'm a teacher, project leader, whatever it is, and I am facilitating these activities, this group work, and allowing the kids to learn from students. This is a project. However, how do I learn? Well, I have to listen. I think that right there was one of the mic drops, if you will, in today's conversation. I'll say this, Rob. I thoroughly have enjoyed our conversation. I've learned a lot, especially when it comes to STEM and soft skills and just kind of learning about the things that you're doing as well on the professional side. And again, folks, we have links in the show notes that will be there. But Rob, I'd love for you to take us home with your final words of advice.
The other area that we get a little prickly about is this all students thing. And yeah, it may be in vogue now to be focusing on real world problems in classrooms, but like you and I spoke to Sheldon at the beginning before we hit record, it's really important that not only we lean in towards those areas we discussed earlier in this podcast, but some of these real world problems, classrooms, special needs, low income, there's a zillion different real world problems that educators and students and schools deal with. But I'm telling you, by not only the experience we're having at this company, like we're charging hard into some of these, as many of these special areas as we can, but it is as important to include those that may not be necessarily exactly like you, situationally, physically, mentally. But I can tell you firsthand experience with our team, some of those students are like, they're going to change the world. And we have to make sure they get these resources just like anybody else.
There you go. If we got some folks that want to connect with you, what's the best way to reach you online?
I'm not in social media, but I do use LinkedIn really to
Okay.
find employees. But we also like to talk because there's a lot of great people on LinkedIn in our space. I'm on LinkedIn, the team's on LinkedIn. So the company has a LinkedIn, but for fun, I would say I would also recommend going on Instagram and finding FTW_Hopper, because our drone Hopper, although Hopper hasn't posted yet, but this is going to be the singular vehicle that Hopper, our drone, will be communicating customers and clients, but the world. That'll be a really great one. It's also going to focus on our work, show our work or the work. So I would just recommend, if you're an educator, for sure, it would be something you'd want to check out. But yeah, hit us up anytime. You can find us on our website, ftw-robotics.com, or just call us. Honestly, we call ourselves as high touch as desired, and we want to hear from you. We want to talk to you, even if it's just collaboration and not a penny of transaction. We're not a motivated by money company.
All right. Well, thank you again, Rob. It has truly been a pleasure. Appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Sheldon.